Explosions, pixels, drum-heavy soundtrack, imagine all that. That's what the intro to those videos of mine should look like. And instead, it's just me talking. So, without further ado, let's see what unknown gems I've dug out for today. On a side note, this is a gem. Nice and shiny, I'm sure you'll agree. And this is a shit nugget. Not as presentable, right? And both will be found in the video. Heaven's Dawn is an incredibly obscure Taiwanese point-and-click adventure game. If you've not heard of it, don't worry, virtually no one has. And if you did, then I salute you. You are a walking classic video game encyclopedia. The obscurity can be credited to it getting an English translation from Australia, so that the adoption to the West was very slow and practically non-existent in Europe, at least via official channels, that is. You play as Jeremy, painter from New York, who's on holiday and accidentally learns the story of God and sins of the humans from an old beggar sitting on a sidewalk. As he finishes his story, he disappears and you're left with the necklace he had on him, mysteriously transported to the cursed fantasy land in the middle of an empty castle. Empty. As in devoid of life, but with everything else right where it was. And the only signs of any life in it, and the King Drew III and his daughter Princess Cassandra, are the scattered around it diaries. To return home, you'll have to figure out where everyone's gone to, what's behind the disappearances, and save the world from God's wrath by finding out how to break the curse. Other than the story, which starts off pretty interesting, the entire game is your box standard point-and-click adventure. And by standard, I mean literally, done correctly by the books with nothing special about it. The story, while interesting initially, gets flat really fast, there's no intricate puzzles of any kind, and the humor is completely absent from it too. So chuckles as found in Discworld or LucasArts' games are not something you'll get to experience in Heaven's Dawn. It was made to work, and it does. Work, that is. And the only thing that it has that most other adventure games don't are the few mini-games, which, while simple, are fun for what they are and are not quick-time events. Graphics and sounds are excellent, with a lot of attention put to them and fit nicely within the overarching atmosphere of gameplay. If you're a fan of point-and-clickers, you're most likely gonna complete it and like it, but if you play them occasionally from time to time when there's nothing else out there, or when you're in the mood for one, then there are way better titles to try out. The Legend of Kyrandia, Discworld, The Secret of Monkey Island, and that's just a few. It's Hammer time! Hammerboy tells a story of MC Hammer, also known as Mac Hammer, and whomever gets that reference is hella cool. But the twist is, it's about his life before he became an international one-hit superstar. I'm Batman! What? What do you mean by that? I see. So, we have a small issue on our hands. Nothing major really, I seem to have mixed up my scripts and it's a game about other Hammer. Boy, to be precise. And for all intents and purposes, Hammerboy is as well known today as MC Hammer. So not very. Basically, it's a computerized version of Nintendo's classic Game & Watch idea with an original protagonist and a few colorful stages to beat. What kind of magical tech is a Game & Watch, you may wonder? Well, I doubt that you'd be watching this video not knowing, but just in case, let me tell you. For the kid in the 80s, it's the best kind. So-called Game & Watch were made of dreams and pure magic, and were also Nintendo's handheld game consoles. They were made with non-removable and non-exchangeable games built in. Or should I say really baked in straight into the LCD screen, with sprites representing all the possible states on the screen action, and only this lighting up that were required at any given moment. I mean, just take a look. That's what I mean. Mickey picking up X, for instance. Simple and very limited in its design concept, but oh so addicting. And Hammerboy is similar. You have 4 stages in the game: fort, battleship, castle and space base, and various enemies thematically appropriate trying to conquer these. And you have to move our little protagonist to correct pre-assigned spots to hammer the invaders down. You see, violence back then was a very open-ended issue, meaning it was open to experience and it did not end with any certification, regulations or nothing. It just was. Well, until Mortal Kombat and Snatcher, but that's a story for an entirely different video. Hammerboy's gameplay doesn't change between the levels whatsoever and is largely rinse and repeat of itself on different backgrounds. Now, can you see where the issue with Hammerboy is yet? It's boring. Because the whole hype behind original Game & Watch was that they were portable and offered a simple score challenge type of a game that you could compete in against friends at school or with sibling on those long family trips in the car. You know, outside. On a PC, at home, it was DOA. We had hundreds, if not thousands, of more expansive, better looking and more fun games available. And no one asked for this one. You're listening to me talking about it in a video about obscure those games, so I suppose it's clear how popular it was. Guardians of Infinity to Save Kennedy is an interactive fiction type of an adventure game, and they are better than those of the Galaxy as they protect the Infinity. I really wanted it to sound more epic, but here we are. That's the best I can do. Anyway, it features a very elaborate and quite captivating plot. Personally, I'm not big on interactive fiction games where you have to type in commands, but as these go, this one's special and definitely worth a look, even if not the most straightforward one to control. As the title may have given it away, you gotta save President Kennedy from assassination. If the choice of words to this point hasn't killed this channel views already, the word starting with K that I just used definitely did. So yeah, bye bye. Story-wise, in 2087, a genius inventor-physicist, great combo I must add, created a time travel machine. He assembled a group of uniquely qualified individuals, convinced them to join, named them Guardians, and sent them back in time to prevent the titular occurrence. All that to stop the chain of events that started with it and will bring a catastrophic in consequences space-time rift in the future. The stakes, as you see, are quite high. You communicate with your agents out of time by typing in verb commands and then observing the results of their actions and replies most of the time shown with walls of text. Each of the agents has to be addressed by the first name so that the game could process who to send the commands to, but when you get the replies, it's not clearly indicated whom is it from, so you don't get the same treatment. If that wasn't enough, Guardians of Infinity run on a very unforgiving timer, so it's best to save often to make sure not to have to replay the whole game if you'll make a single mistake somewhere along the way. And you will make a lot of this if you won't use the manual. It contains valuable and necessary information on locations and schedules of all key to the plot people in relation to that in-game timer. And not using it is like taking hundreds of shots in the dark aiming right, while knowing for a fact that your targets are on the left. So, perhaps a ricochet can hit one of them by a sheer stroke of luck, but chances are very low and most of these shots will go nowhere near them. Majority of the story is unveiled between the lines of text and it gets your imagination going, plotting how to best utilize your agents and solve various situations in best ways possible. That said, once in a while you're treated to a static EGA graphics screen that looks like something torn straight out of ZX Spectrum screen. They're not great, but a nice refresher between the constant onslaught of letters. Even if tackling a bit controversial and sensitive subject and burdened with a bit clunky controls, Guardians of Infinity will definitely be a treat to all fans of the genre. If you're not one though, I can't see you nose deep in the manual, typing in hundreds of commands, so skip it. Heaven and Earth is probably the toughest game to talk about out of all in this video. It's a triple threat, if you will, serving 3 puzzle games under one title's roof, each very unique and distinctly different, and yet all fun. The first of them all is a variation on a solitaire, and I say it with a very broad definition of it in mind, as it's a puzzle card game that's arguably way better than solitaire and also more robust and complex too. It uses custom cards, each described with 3 unique suits as opposed to regular cards too. First is a month that they correspond to. Second, the element of fire, earth, water or air. And finally, last is the theme of a card. And this can be a lot of things, stuff like rain, thunder, mountains among others. You stack them up following a very intricate rules of combining into regular and bonus sets, positive or negative. So for instance, rain and thunder combined are positive, but separately cause a penalty. This first puzzler alone is worth a whole video on its own to explain in full, so know only that if you enjoy mindbenders and card games too, it's definitely something you'll fall in love with. The second is a variation on a repeat the pattern you see in one box in another kind of a game. Twist is, you can overlap the blocks to create patterns, and when blocks are placed on or next to each other and touch one another, they are permanently joined, so you have to plan your moves ahead before committing to them. It requires an outside-of-the-box approach, and that bad pun is definitely intended. The last game sees you moving physics-based pendulum around the game board with a goal of touching appearing on the board markers. It starts that simple, but in time when you progress, the mechanics are added like magnets that either attract or repel the pendulum, so the further you go, the tougher the marker placement will be. This one's easier on the brain than the other two, but as fun. There's also a so-called Pilgrim mode, which is basically a tournament combining games from the former 3. Heaven and Earth is my pick of a gem of a game from this video. It may look really simple, not use flashy presentation, digitized sounds or orchestral music, and all that it really offers is 3 puzzle games. But the quality of this is unparalleled. And the card game especially offers a really solid and very deep mechanics, which guarantees its nearly infinite longevity. Hariboy's Quest is a point-and-click adventure game, and it's been released as a promotional product for Haribo candy. It's also clear basically from the get-go that it's directed at the younger audience. And not only cause when they're kids it's easiest to get them addicted to sugar, but also cause the puzzle difficulty in this one is virtually non-existent. Now, and keep that in mind, I didn't say it's a bad game. I just pointed out that it's beyond easy. And you know what? If you want to teach your kids how to play adventure games, or have a friend that always tried to completing one but failed each and every time without a walkthrough, well, it's one that will fit both play case scenarios. An evil dragon destroyed the super secret candy formula, and the land of Bonbonia is in risk of failing to ruin. So, our young hero, Hariboy, is sucked into a painting in his room and transported to the magical land to save it, to find all pieces of a spare copy of the recipe, traveling across 3 different worlds: medieval, Roman and Wild West themed. But as he does just that, there's someone else going for the same thing. As evil as the earlier dragon, Jack, the one-eyed pirate, and a leader of the crew of pirates. The game is pretty expansive for a promotional title, consisting of 250 locations and dozens upon dozens of puzzles. Perhaps dead simple ones, but puzzles nonetheless. Hariboy's quest is displaying high-resolution SVGA graphics, and I have a very mixed feelings about it. Cause on one hand, it's pretty nice, but on another it clearly lacks style and seems to be a mashup of general child-friendly characters and themes, often not fitting well together. I'm not a fan, is what I'm saying. Hariboy's quest can be a lot of fun for a kid, so if you have one and it's for whatever the reason not looking at his /her tablet or cell phone, it's not a bad choice. Hero's Heart is a top-down single-screen shareware puzzler that feels a little bit like mixture of Boulder Dash and Chips Challenge. Since it's running in high resolution, each of the 25 included levels contains at least few separate and small puzzles to solve and collect all the hearts. Oh yeah, I've not mentioned it yet, but each level requires you to collect all hearts to be able to get to the exit. Naturally, all stages are filled with hazards like fire, arrows, monsters or falling rocks, to name a few, and special puzzling items and tiles like conveyor belts, wooden crates that can be used to travel across the pools of water, expandable bridges and keys. And you have to figure out the path around the first, using second to complete each challenge. Naturally, as in many similar titles, there's often only one correct way to complete the level, and figuring it out is quite fun, especially in the latter parts of the game, as the first few are rather easy. Hero's Heart's sound design was made to infuriate all the cats and dogs around and to wake up ancient evil lying in hiding in eternal slumber to once again race and cause death and destruction all around. So they're annoying and beepy, and there's nothing much you can do to make them sound better other than straight up turning the sound off. Whatever, it is what it is. Graphics, while simple, are high-res and easily readable, making for a very pleasant puzzling experience. If you register the game, it transforms into Hero Gold, which features over 80 levels and a very easy to use and yet robust level editor. It's easily one of the most fun DOS-era puzzlers and a true hidden gem of a game. Heavy Barrel is a port from the arcades and a top-down action shooter similar to games like Commando or Ikari Warriors. Not as good or memorable as either though. And while I never specifically said that it was bad, it kinda is, so yeah, I'm saying it now. But we'll get to that in a minute. Story-wise, terrorists have seized the underground control complex of a nuclear missile site and are threatening to use the missiles. So it's up to you, or better yet you and a friend, why suffer alone after all, to infiltrate the location, eliminate the terrorist's leader and any and all bodies along the way. To defeat the enemy's boss, however, you'll need the Heavy Barrel, which, believe it or not, is neither a barrel of pickles, do they even come in barrels, nor is it filled with oil or a container to light a fire in. It's a super turbo extra secret weapon that totally coincidentally is also in the complex you'll be raiding. Now, how lucky are you? It is divided into 6 parts and scattered across 6 different storage lockers in the game. Boss or no boss, it's beyond my means of understanding why you'd need a super special weapon to defeat a human. Unless he's a Terminator. Then yeah, it checks out. When original Terminator came out in Poland, its title was translated to Elektroniczny Morderca, which means electronic murderer. But in the movie, they were calling Arnie and all other ones Terminators, despite that title. Consistency was not our strongest suit, it seems. In the same time, Terminator 2 came out as Terminator 2, the way it's supposed to. And it took years for the first one to be renamed to Terminator here, as it is known as now. Anyway, Heavy Barrel is not a looker. The graphics are meh at best, with most of the screen covered with a huge frame and only small window in the middle designated for gameplay. Enemy sprites are rather bland and move as if they were carrying heavy load in their trousers, with legs spread out as if their feared said load would soil the rest of their clothing too. Animation and scrolling is jerky and the sounds are a PC speaker's owner's nightmare. Same repeatable beeps and bops with no music. Heavy Barrel is not great. I don't like it. But I imagine that playing it can be fun, especially if you have someone with you and drinks are involved. In any other case, I'd avoid it. There are better shooters on PC. Hammerhead is a classic Spider-Man villain that looks like a pre-op Frankenstein's monster minutes before having the bolt screwed in his neck. It's also someone who's so thick that they're better off using their noggin hammering nails than thinking. And finally, and actually accurately to today's video, 1992's horizontally scrolling sci-fi themed platformer. You play as the Hammerhead, a super secret special agent with exceptionally strong skull. In fact, it's the second toughest thing on Earth, directly after the uncut diamond. Since the nature gave you this incredible gift, it's also what you use to take out any and all enemies that come your way, utilizing your own patent-pending Hammerhead Fu, no relation to Kung Fu. And it's a very simple and yet surprisingly effective martial art focusing on headbanging, which can also be used as a very fun dance move during most heavy metal concerts. In essence, Hammerhead is a get-to-the-exit type of a game, and naturally all within a allotted time limit. As you plow through the enemies, spreading forehead justice left and right, you also get to collect gold coins and other various objects, and all these can be used at the end levels to acquire extra lives, additional time and power-ups. One of them being a CPU-controlled mini-companion, which is just the cutest, most useful thing ever, and he's more than helpful in faster level completion. Hammerhead's presentation would be pretty decent for an early EGA, but it released in 1992, which was anything but early for the graphic chipset. So as a result, looks rather disappointing, and same can be said about gameplay. It would have been fine in 1987, but 5 years later it felt dated at best. Don't take it the wrong way, it's not a bad game, it's just a bit too late to the party that disbanded weeks ago, and all that's left for it is looking for unfinished drinks in scattered around the house red plastic cups. Guimo is a side-scrolling platformer similar to Alien Carnage, but less brutal. Also sporting a name that says nothing about it really and sounds like one of those exotic diseases that you get after a jungle spider bite. To summarize the story, entity known only as Nectarion conquered Bitland and declared his intention of destroying humanity. One of the most stupid things any villain can do is either share their entire plan with a side observer or their captive, or like here, downright declare it. But whatever, I'm no villain, I have no clue what they have to do. Perhaps it's in the job description. You play as the titular Guimo, and you will stop Nectarion. You won't fail, and the world will forever be indebted to you. Note that down. Guimo features beautiful lush console-like graphics, rich backgrounds and butter-smooth animations. It's a pleasure to both witness and play. You'll face many different enemies and monsters on your adventure, and they're all out there to get you. But you're no newbie, this is not your first rodeo, you're armed and ready. And you can blast them all into non-existence with your trusty gun. But just because you left your home with it, don't mean that you have to stick to it, and you'll find other, better ones as you go, from an arsenal of 10 different guns available. There are some power-ups too, just saying. Guimo's levels are rather expansive in their design and feature many active and passive obstacles and hazards, some moving platforms, fireballs and traps to name a few. It's also chock full of hidden passages, opening new secret passageways for more varied subsequent playthroughs. Guimo is a Brazilian game, and as such it saw very little recognition outside of the country. It's a pity though, as given its quality, fun factor and longevity, it deserved much more acclaim than it ever received. Especially because aside from perfectly crafted gameplay loop, it also introduced many features other games in the genre didn't do at the time. Stuff like sidekicks following you and the ability to issue simple orders to them, or enemy AI that will have monsters running for reinforcements when in danger and track your movements around the level, as opposed to following pre-assigned paths like they did in most other games. And the cherry on top of it all is the so-called kid difficulty level, that handles all the obstacles and movement in a chosen direction, so that the child can focus on shooting and having fun. Guimo is a great game for anyone, everyone, in all age groups. Heartlight is a game that I think most people never heard of. I played it first on the Amiga, and then when I moved to PC, I made it a point in my non-existent in reality, yet very serious virtually, teenage agenda to track it down and get for my new grey box. It was more cream than grey, but I digress. Oddly enough, PC was first out of both 16-bit systems that ever got a port of Heartlight, so while I played it on Ami first, it was actually a second big system it landed on. Not sure if that's important, I just decided to share it. Cause we're friends, you and I. Bit weird ones perhaps, as I do all the talking and you listen. You always listen. You never judge, you listen. You take it all in, and then we're both happy when I'm done. Well, actually, some of you do judge from time to time, but a little bit of constructive criticism in the comments keeps me grounded. Anyway, you're great is what I'm saying. And I just wanted to share this little memory with you, that's all. Heartlight only ever came out in Polish, which theoretically should limit its potential reach, and sadly it did. It's disappointing, as aside from the game start credits and loading screen, the language is hardly noticeable anywhere and doesn't get in the way of playing. Heartlight is my most favorite Boulder Dash-esque game ever. It looks pretty nice, sounds, well, not great but it does, and features 64 brilliantly crafted and hella demanding levels. They're way more strategic, difficult and puzzle-centric than those in Dash, so at times they may require a little trial and error trying to work out the order of moves and gimmick behind a particular puzzle. Having to repeat a stage time after time may feel a bit annoying, but when you finally solve it, it's incredibly rewarding. All because they're smartly designed, and when things finally click in your head and you get that eureka moment, you instantly see things falling into place and how to carry on throughout the level perfectly. Heartlight is genuinely very good and most importantly fun game that deserved much more attention than it ever received. It should be remembered and played and not become just a footnote on a gaming history. But it is what it is, and I can't change anything today. Anyway, the cherry on this already sweet pie of a game is inclusion of an incredibly easy to use, text-based level editor. If you ever get a chance and like puzzle games, don't sleep on Heartlight. Too many for too long have already. Pretty cool episode, right? We had some fun games, some that sucked, and as per usual chaotic and oddly structured commentary. So win-win-win? Triple combo and another one for the books? If you liked any game in particular or have fond memories of it, let me know in the comments below. If you liked the video, hit those like and subscribe buttons below. Smash them if you have to, it helps more than you could ever know. Also, I would like to thank you and all my amazing Patreon and YouTube members for helping this channel keep going. And last but definitely not least, I would like to thank all the wonderful folks who record and upload playthroughs, let's plays and other retro-centric videos here on YouTube, because they help to preserve the games that would have otherwise been long forgotten. So thank you.